Mim.
Hey, Scarlett.
Welcome back, guys. You're listening to Style Over Substance.
We're just two friends talking about our experiences working inside the fashion industry and also our observations from outside the fashion industry. It's sometimes serious, but it's definitely always a good laugh.
Always. We release new episodes every Tuesday.
So subscribe on your favourite podcast listening platform.
Oh, yes. Yeah, she did. From what I saw, it was kind of touted as a Las Vegas wedding, very quick, very impromptu, but we know that she's not quick or impromptu or rock and roll about anything.
No. She's got something called like the J-Lo down or something like the J-Lo, like she's got a website. And I've subscribed to it because I think it was after her engagement, the only place she properly shared details about it was on her website. And I was like, I want the deets, I want to know. Yeah. And so I signed up for it. So I got to see like her description of stuff. Because then the Daily Mail basically like steals all of that information and shares it. But she was saying, or implying I should say, that that's the wedding they originally wanted all those years ago.
Okay.
So yeah. But like her kids were there, his kids were there.
Can you move your phone away? I've moved mine, but
yeah, I moved my phone.
It's coming back. So
hang on. It's on charge, that's why.
Oh, I see.
I'll just move it a bit further. There we go. But yeah, her kids were there, his kids were there. And I don't know, like, she wore a dress supposedly from a film that she's been in.
Okay.
But I don't know, I just like find it kind of funny that we had touted it as it was going to be this big event and it was going to be crazy. And actually, I know this sounds really silly, but it just makes me believe it a bit more, that it's not just been this big song and dance and they just kind of have quietly gotten married.
But I think when it's not your first wedding, you approach...
Sure.
I mean, look at Kimberly Kardashian. Her wedding to Kanye was radically different than it was to that other bloke. I can't remember his name. And when I heard it was like a Las Vegas wedding, very small, very intimate, it made me think of Kourtney Kardashian's wedding.
Yeah.
Are we in the age of seemingly impromptu, casual celebrity weddings?
Yeah, I actually think there's something really nice about that. I once heard of these people that I followed on Instagram, and they were YouTubers as well. I think it was maybe their 30th birthday, and they were throwing a joint 30th birthday party, got all their friends and family to come, and they surprised them by getting married. That it was their wedding. So they were already engaged, but they surprised everybody that it was their wedding. I just kind of think there's something actually really nice about taking a bit of like the heat off of a day and it being a bit impromptu.
100%. Yeah. I think we've spoken about, or we've had episodes about weddings before. And yeah, if I was to get married, I would not want a year-long run-up to this massive preparation of this massive event that's been overhyped with stress and like bridezilla vibes. I would hate it. I really do like the idea of just like getting the wedding day over and done with, because really and truly it's not about the wedding day, it's about the marriage, isn't it? So yeah, I really do like that idea. I'm just surprised that it's J-Lo. For her to wear a dress that she says that she's worn in a film before or other work she's done in the past or something like that. Basically, it's a secondhand dress. It's a used dress, let's say. For her, of all people, she loves glamour. She, she's not a subtle personality. And a lot of the talk around their relationship is how crafted it is in the media. So for her to do something as private as this just shocks me that it's coming from her, really.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think it's really nice. I think it's really refreshing. Yeah. I was really shocked though. I was really shocked because also, like we've talked about, they have been touted as promoting their relationship, having a lot of paparazzi follow them around, maybe not by accident. So the idea that this wasn't leaked to anyone, that it all happened in private and we find out on their terms, is quite new for them.
Is it? Because everything is on their terms.
Well, yeah, I guess, but we see them strolling around in like whenever we want, basically. Yeah, I guess that is all on their terms, essentially, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, how many times has JLo been married now?
I only think one.
I know she's been engaged a lot, but I don't think she's actually been married many times.
I would say she's probably been engaged like twice or 3 times before, but only married once. Am I wrong about that?
She was engaged to a backing dancer.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck.
Mark Anthony, she got married to.
Mark Anthony, A-Rod.
Oh, yes.
Was she engaged to P. Diddy?
No, I don't
think so.
So 4 engagements, made it down the aisle twice.
Really?
We could say Ben Affleck twice.
Yeah. It is twice. It's 5 engagements.
No, twice. Well, not bad odds.
I'm happy with those odds.
I mean, getting engaged to 5 times is no mean feat.
Do you know how draining that sounds? Like, I know that's like, oh, isn't that lovely that someone wants to marry you? Do you know how draining that sounds that 3 of those did not go through?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Does it end up being less of a big deal the more times you get engaged?
Yeah, I'm definitely somebody that would prefer that my future Mr. Big has not been engaged before. I think the idea of them having proposed to somebody, it would feel a bit less meaningful if I was their second.
Yeah. I think you've still got a chance to being someone else's first.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm not that old yet, hopefully.
I hear you though.
But and like that's not necessarily fair. That can happen for anyone, and things don't work out. But yeah, I think I would think it was less special.
I know, which is completely irrational, but
of course it is. Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
What's your fashion story?
So my real fashion story is that Zara have a new muse.
Oh, I've just seen this.
Miss Kate Moss.
Yes.
And I think this is huge. I haven't seen this anywhere. Granted, I don't watch telly or anything like that, really. I haven't seen it on Instagram anywhere.
Zara doesn't I don't think they spend a lot of money in advertising, you know.
No, but like, this is such a big deal. I guess they just know that people regularly visit their website. But we were also in Zara only the other day. There was no hint at it. They don't even really do window displays. Zara just, they're like, you're going to come here anyway. But yeah, I just think for those of you who might be a bit younger as a listener, it was a big deal back in the sort of 2010s. Kate Moss had a collection with Topshop, and it was huge. It was such a big deal.
On par with Naomi, and on par with Linda.
But those collections were such a big deal for Topshop. They drove so much traffic. Like, they were slightly more premium. They sold out. It was such a big deal. So for her to now have like a thing with Zara, I feel like it's quite a big deal.
No, I mean, Kate Moss is undeniably one of the biggest, most famous, most successful models in decades. Like, she's a massive name. So I don't think it's not big because of her, but I think that Zara, I think they put a lot of money into their editorial shoots for their sites and things. They don't advertise a lot, but just when you go on their website,
they're like oven pictures. When a model will just be standing on top of a hob.
No, but like
when like trying to fit in a microwave.
There's been some real mishaps with that website, but when they do those kind of beginning of the season new collection spreads, they are very like design led, kind of creativity led, and they've had some really big photographers do their campaigns, and they've got some pretty big modeling names. I say names, I mean like faces, models that I recognize from lots of other campaigns and runways and things like that. And they've been featured on their website to be part of a new collection. So I'm not surprised by Zara. Zara is probably the single biggest, minus like Shein, I think they're like the single biggest fast fashion company. They're incredibly wealthy.
High street, for sure.
Yeah, high street, definitely. Incredibly wealthy, have so much pulling power. As I said, they've had some really big names or photographers shoot their campaigns. So yeah, I'm not massively surprised, if I'm honest.
I'm not surprised. I just feel like it's I think with the Topshop history, it just feels like a really big deal. And also, I think it just reminds us how big Kate Moss is. She sort of isn't that active anymore. She kind of tips in and out of things. Every now and then she'll show up. She had a little resurgence because she had a cameo in the Depp Heard case.
Yeah.
But just that she's still got that gravitas, and it's an expensive collection. I don't know. I'm guessing she sort of helped edit that collection.
Okay.
And it's like a premium price point. Like, things are around £100, all of that kind of a thing. But I'm just like, she's still got it.
I think that's what the biggest thing is for me. Like, wow, Kate Moss is back.
Yeah.
Like, she's working again. Like, she's doing big projects. I mean, she was probably always working, but she's doing like big projects. She's putting her face out there, which we haven't seen a lot of her. Not that she needs to. She can literally retire on a private island for the rest of her life and like not have to be done with it can be done with all of us. But yeah, I think that's the surprising thing, that she's back to working, and she looks great in the campaign as well.
Looks really good. Yeah,
I had to think to myself, how much editing did they do on her? Not to say she's not a beautiful woman, but I was just like,
the age. Yeah,
they look like this.
Yeah. And also, like, I guess she's also someone who partied hard, so she's gonna have weathered. She was a smoker. That definitely ages you. She was out partying a lot, so that does, that doesn't come for free.
Yeah, she was the face of this heroin chic, and not heroin as in like the female version of a hero, that like
the class A drug.
So yeah, lived a full life, let's say.
Yeah. What is your fashion story?
Well, my fashion story is a fashion story that involves you as well. Over the weekend, we went to the Saatchi Gallery because they held an exhibition with Tiffany & Co, the jewelry company. And for any listeners, if you've not been to the Saatchi Gallery, it's completely free to attend their exhibitions and their main collection. And especially for a free exhibition, I have to say this was up there in terms of presentations, what they had on offer to show. So they had kind of bits of, obviously jewelry, diamonds, precious stones and precious metals as part of their archive collection was on display, but also some pieces that were part of private collections. They had displays which were miniature versions of window displays that they've had over the years. There were posters of Tiffany campaigns in the past. There was an interactive room where you could draw a love message and your message would kind of float up into the walls. What else was there? There was a whole room dedicated to Breakfast at Tiffany's film. Good. I was really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and that love room as well was showing off the Tiffany cut rings that they're famous for, because we had been sort of walking around the exhibition sort of saying what's the fuss about getting your ring from Tiffany? And ultimately it is that cut that they made famous of having the diamond sit quite high. I've found my ring. Little did we know it'd be heart-shaped. I think I've even been on here knocking heart-shaped rings. But that was beautiful. And also so this exhibition knew what it was doing. It had the history, it had all of this stuff, it had design, it had then the romantic moments that you could take your boo and be like, babe, this is what I like. Yeah. And then there was literally a place that you could have a Tiffany consultation.
Yeah, right at the end you could book the try on some
so
of
I don't know if that was literally just a try on.
Let's be honest,
what are you trying it on for?
Exactly. You're going to go, there's lots of people, most people go on to try on because they want to try on a fancy ring and they know that's cool. And they're happy to kind of entertain people with that. But if you think about the people who live in the area around the Saatchi Gallery who is likely to come and see this exhibition, there's a lot of people who would come to this and have the money to buy Tiffany jewelry. It's not a poor neighborhood of London. And at the end of the day, Tiffany, well, not just Tiffany & Co, but luxury brands are aspirational. They thrive and depend on people like us who can't afford to buy it now, but will aspire to buy it later.
Yeah.
And so the consultation room is it's an investment for the future. Let's try and pull some people in who have probably never been into our stores.
So we just had a great exhibition and sold them the Tiffany dream.
Exactly. And so they're playing the long game. And I think I'm pretty sure wasn't there, speaking to one of the people who was working at the exhibition, we were told that there were a couple pieces that were actually on sale in the exhibition. Granted, they were on sale for £30 million or something ridiculous. But if you were so inclined and you had the money for it and you could ask, listen, I really like this, maybe a number, then I'm sure that they would jump it.
Yeah, it was a great exhibition, to be honest. It had a really great mixture of really beautiful, intricate pieces that they do, the history, seeing, the evolution of blue boxes and different jewellery through eras. I love seeing sort of how the style of things change. And then just showing off, really. You forget, we were talking about this, that you forget that Tiffany isn't just that padlock necklace that people get, or a charm bracelet, or just a bangle or whatever. It's actually a very well-established,
Yeah.
high reputation, very skilled jewelers.
Yeah, exactly. It's got a lot of history and it's intrinsically tied to New York City and that aristocratic echelon of
Vanderbilt.
New York socialites. And also going there and seeing the exhibitions reminded, like, wow, Tiffany lamps are actually beautiful and very
God.
I think that it's kind of not stained glass, but lack of a better term, stained glass lamps. But they were beautiful. They like depicted lily pads and like weeping willows and yeah, they were stunning, I have to admit. Also, the fact that socialites of like the arts and culture had also been part of sometimes designing Tiffany collections. So we looked at a range that was not one range, actually. The daughter of Pablo Picasso, Paloma Picasso, had worked with Tiffany's for a number of years to design pieces of jewelry along with them. And I mean, I would have never known that. I found that really interesting.
I never even had heard of her.
Yeah, exactly.
We interrupt this broadcast to say, go follow us on Instagram. Our handle is @StyleOverSubstancePod. There you'll find our weekly fashion topics, all the stuff that we discuss in each episode, and our polls.
Or reach out to us at styleoversubstancepodcast@gmail.com for new suggestions of topic discussions, or even to share your own fashion stories. We also have a YouTube channel, Style Over Substance Podcast, if you'd rather listen to our episodes over there.
Back to the episode.
It was a good show, and so basically that has inspired our episode. We are doing another style icon episode. Yeah.
So, obviously, Tiffany & Co. The film that you think of is Breakfast at Tiffany's. Iconic 1960s. Yeah, I think it was in 1960 it premiered. And the leading lady was Audrey Hepburn. And so we decided we'd do a fashion icon episode about Miss Audrey Hepburn. And I think what's interesting about icons is that very often their name is known globally. You know, you mention their name and you instantly think of a particular look, a particular style, particular iconography. But often we don't actually know much about them. Who were they? What were they actually famous for besides their look? And what made them so famous because of their look? Like, what made them stand out from the crowd? So I think Audrey Hepburn is like a really elusive character to me. And so, yeah, that's the reason why we thought she'd be perfect to kind of discuss and, you know, talk about why she was such a big name and to this day a fashion icon.
Yeah, so like the thing that first springs to mind for me when you think of Audrey Hepburn is, like, bearing in mind she was sort of running alongside Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
And so, but she's the total opposite. Whereas Marilyn Monroe was the blonde bombshell, very sexy, would wear like these figure hugging. She was like such a quote unquote woman. Audrey Hepburn was arguably the opposite. She sort of had this pixie cut hair. really strong eyebrows, big eyes, very dainty face, very petite figure, but dressed so demure and so chic. And I haven't seen like a single thing where she's trying to be sexy. It is all just this very classy, very like understated. And I think I even saw one of the articles that I read how, what's that term where it's like the basic thing that's now the look at the moment?
Oh, like that clean,
like clean thing, but that's got nothing on Audrey Hepburn, and just how kind of like effortless she made things. She was just everything just, and it was consistent. It wasn't like she went through seasons. It was really consistent, and I think that's because she had her relationship with Givenchy, and they kind of were each other's muses. But yeah, like all I think of is what like a sophisticated and chic woman she was.
Yeah, definitely. I think she actually said herself, well, she's quoted saying that she preferred dressing casual, and when she had to dress up was for film premieres or promotions, or when she was working and it warranted her dressing up, she would, but she likes the casual. And when you talk about her style, you've used words like classic, very chic. And it's interesting because back in the 50s and the 60s, what they deemed as chic and classic would have been completely different to what we deem it to be. And it's characters like Audrey Hepburn, who were in the spotlight, who ushered in a new definition of what we deem to be classic, chic, Parisian, for her era, maybe dressing down, like she basically popularized like wearing black leggings and like Todd's smart shoes, that could have been not very put together. I think in episodes, like probably like 50 episodes ago, I think we've spoken about how, I think it was when we had an episode with the Hood London, and we were talking about hats and how in the 50s and 60s, wearing a kind of suit, something that, matched your hat, which matched your jacket, which matched your shoes and your handbag and your skirt. Everything was a really well put together look. It wasn't effortless. It was like you knew what you were going to wear and how you were going to wear it, and your jewelry matched and all of that. It was very, as I said, put together. So to wear something casual back then may have been a little bit juvenile, may have been a little bit sloppy. But today we consider that to be classic, chic, effortless. So it's really interesting to see how these terms change meaning, and it's because we have these icons who are in the public eye which popularize it.
Yeah, that's so true. And so a lot of, I think also back then, I think a star must have had quite a say in what they wore in films, because I even think of Marilyn, and even if you think in Some Like It Hot or Gentlemen's Prefer Blondes, she's wearing sexy stuff, and so whether or not that dictated her style or vice versa, I would say that Audrey has a really similar thing. I mean, I didn't know that Marilyn Monroe turned down the role of Breakfast at Tiffany's, and so would the black Givenchy dress that is arguably the most famous little black dress in the world, would that have been the dress for that film if it hadn't have been Audrey Hepburn? Would it have been sexier, but then that's not the character? Like, would it have changed?
So I think, to your first point, I don't know if actresses had a lot of say per se, but I do know that during the 50s and even the 40s, an actor and actress were tied to a film studio.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, your contract was
and
to a
style of film, and
exactly, and you would make a number of films a year or whatever, as opposed to now where it's like an actor and actress can jump around, they can negotiate their film at what price,
when Universal film, yeah,
exactly, with Paramount or Universal, as you said, or whatever, or MGM. And so I think that having a contract with a production studio meant that you had long-standing relationships. Your relationships with people and producers and costume designers spanned longer periods of time. So you had that working relationship. These designers and costume designers were your stylist in a sense. And the producer, the owners of these film studios had a lot of say in, I'm really sorry to bring up Harvey Weinstein, but you know how he kind of brought on these new kind of it girl actresses, and he would say what they would wear down the runway, not the runway, the red carpet, and how he wanted them to present themselves while promoting a film. It was very much like that. So if you were Marilyn and you'd been really successful as that hot blonde and that was your lane, that's what you did, and you played into that because that was going to make you and the studio money, because that was like your currency in a sense. So I think probably the same could be said about Audrey Hepburn, that once she, once her like gamine, very slender, very demure kind of aesthetic became her aesthetic, it became a long-standing, what's the word? Like, that became her like motif. That was her thing. That was her image. And I think also something could be said about nowadays, how all these celebs jump from trend to trend to trend, where all these different style clothing. Back then it was like so much more consistent. Fashion was so much more consistent than it is today.
Yeah, it's a very different time. That's so true. Yeah, and I'd forgotten about sort of the film studios. But a lot of her films, when they talk about Audrey Hepburn, the style icon, her stuff that she wore in her films was also iconic. Like My Fair Lady, there's some incredible looks from that film, and they are sort of, just as notorious as her looks outside of film. And I think that is a big thing, is that not only kind of, we talked with J-Lo, that moment in Made in Manhattan, there have been those moments for Audrey in multiple films that she's done, and so that helps then build up your style icon name as well. And like you said, her sort of effortless chic, off-duty look was just so pared back. It would be like a black polo neck and maybe some black cigarette trousers or leggings, and just very like almost no effort.
Yeah, so the idea of it being really effortless, I don't know if that had a lot to do with her upbringing. So if you don't know, listeners, Audrey Hepburn was from an aristocratic family. She wasn't a poor gal. She was born in Brussels. Her parents were both wealthy people. And she was born in 1929. She only passed in 1993. So being from an aristocratic family, of like this European dynasty, she actually went into ballet. She was a ballet dancer, and then she went to perform in the West End. And I don't know if that kind of old money appreciation or style plays into it. I don't know. I'm really hazarding a massive guess here. But where you have actresses who maybe came from nothing, the glitz, the glamour of Hollywood and the diamonds and all of that might be more appealing. But when, you're someone from an aristocratic family, grew up in wealth anyway, saw and lived through the war. I think she was taken to the Netherlands during the Second World War. And then you kind of make it to the States and you have a career there. I think your pursuit is not necessarily glamour.
Yeah.
Maybe that had I don't know, what do you think?
I think that's such a good point. I think we see it now. I think that there is like more of a new money approach to things. I think that they seek the things that they couldn't have, and they didn't have it. So then you reach for sparkly, but then you see kind of like, I mean, even think about, it might be a bit as well to do with what class is meant to look like, but think of the royal family. The way they dress is so, I know that's also for like a certain reason, but they're not going out there dressing like J-Lo, showing off their body or wearing all the diamonds under the sun. And it's probably a really poor example, but you know what I mean, that they're actually a kind of like old money tends to sort of, I guess they're not as much in need of the new shiny things, and maybe they've been raised around a certain level of sophistication. I think even just with showing off her body, I think you kind of, that could be the answer behind that.
I mean, I've never been aristocratic, but I think that when you are from certain social classes, your standing in society and the way others perceive you is your currency. You know, if people think that they don't think highly of you, then you're not going to be invited to the best places, the best social circles. Like, other people's opinion of you and your family really matter. So I think you're less likely to try and like be a bit controversial, you know, in the way you dress and whatnot. You're going to play it safe, and you want to be on the good graces of people who are around you and will like.
She could be a debutante and all of that stuff for all we know.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you know what? Another point I wanted to kind of raise and ask you about, as you know, described at the beginning of this episode, Audrey Hepburn is known for her pixie cut, her really petite features. She's very slim. She's quite a gentle personality in general. And the actress, for the life of me, can't remember her first name, but the lead character in Emily in Paris,
Lily Collins.
Lily Collins, that's it. Lily Collins, to me, I feel like
trying to be the modern day version of her.
Yeah, she plays off of that Audrey aesthetic and demeanor completely. What do you think? And do you think it's working?
No.
Yeah, you think it's working?
No. I think she's doing that for like a few reasons. She's got the same kind of colouring, she's got big eyebrows, and so dark hair, pale skin, and she's a petite girl. But I don't know, I sort of have a love-hate relationship with Lily Collins. I don't really know what her style is. I just don't really know what her style is. But I also think that's to do with how you said before that style changes so much, and I even have that one day I could look a bit like my boyfriend's in a band and I look like I'm going to a rock concert. The next I could look like I'm going to the Chelsea Flower Show and that I've got like a floral, I mean maybe not that twee, but like you have different moods, or there'll be kind of a really off-duty look or a really done up look. And so I think that we express ourselves in quite different ways. And so I think there's just probably not the consistency from Lily Collins to pull off that so much. But I will say more recently, and even Lily Collins's wedding dress was very covered up.
Well, when you were talking about her, I was thinking of that dress, and one of the most stunning wedding attire. I can't even call it a dress because the veil was really long, wasn't it? Wasn't it a really long veil? I remember
It had a hood.
It had a hood, that was it.
Which is not something you can do when you've played Snow White. It just makes me feel like she's wearing a film costume.
I didn't even think of that. No, I thought it was stunning, honestly. Yeah. And yeah, I think because she is so petite, you know, when like really petite people can pull off extra fabric.
Yes. Like, and I would say that's Audrey Hepburn. She could pull off that 60s. I mean, even the dress that's famous from Breakfast at Tiffany's, if you're not petite, that would actually not be very flattering because it puffs out at the hips, like peplum-y sort of style. Yeah. And it's sort of a lot of 60s things were quite shift and they were very beanpole.
Yeah,
wanted a beanpole to wear them. So yeah, I find it quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's even kind of in Taylor Swift's music video Shake It Off, there's a scene where she wears like a black light knit top or jumper, and yeah, black skinny jeans with a red lipstick, and everyone just associates that with it being Audrey Hepburn with ballet pumps. You can't help but just that's the reference. She sort of was the queen of a flat shoe. She's great. I love Audrey Hepburn.
I think we should probably talk about her relationship with Hubert de Givenchy.
So at the exhibition they had said little black dress, and the dress was designed for her to wear in the film. And then, as sort of the placard said, but it then featured in the couture show before the film. I think it was like the 1959 like couture show, and then the film came out the next year. So that got shown on the runway, and then it featured in the film, but still all the while had been designed for it. And that's huge. So I read that basically she crossed paths with him shortly after she did the film. Is it called Funny?
Funny
Faces?
Funny Faces, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it is called Funny Faces. So I think they crossed paths around that time and then sort of decided to try and like work together. And then I think she shortly had done kind of, films. She'd done, I think, maybe My Fair Lady by that point, and Roman Holiday. So she'd already had like these famous films come out, and so I think that added to her allure as well for Hubert to kind of work with her. And kind of from that point onwards, I think they did a lot of collaborating. I'm pretty sure he designed her dress for the premiere. He designed her wedding dress, and I think she wore his dress to the Oscars, and it just became this long history. And I think she was even on the cover of Vogue shortly after that wearing Givenchy, and it just kind of became this real relationship.
Yeah. At the beginning, going back to the beginning of their relationship, Givenchy had been tasked with being the costume designer for, it was the film, it was actually her second film, Sabrina. And she was, although she, been in big films, this was her second on-screen film. And so she was still fairly new to the world of Hollywood. And Givenchy was, at the time, a young couturier. I can't pronounce it, but he was new to establishing his couture line. And so, that's the beginning of their working relationship. But as you said, he went on to design other things with her for different occasions. And I think it's so interesting. I think it's a reminder of how influential or how quickly the 20th century went by, like all the biggest names and most iconic people were all alive at the same time, doing things together, like Givenchy and Audrey Hepburn, like seriously.
And in my head, you know, when we said this earlier, when we were at the Tiffany exhibition about Pablo Picasso, and that in our heads he was like an artist in the 18th century or something like that, that it just wasn't even near our lifetime. But I think he died in the 1980s or something. And the fact that, again, these fashion houses, they're like over 100 years old. You're like, oh my gosh, like amazing. You can't think that they even were existing at the same time as it just it doesn't feel like
like when you think about when you think about like Christian Dior and Yves Saint Laurent together, working at the same time, at the same period of history together, that is weird.
Because Christian Dior feels like that would have been so much earlier than Yves Saint Laurent. I know.
It is crazy. But yeah, even kind of while Audrey Hepburn was alive, it was said that her wearing a Burberry trench in Breakfast at Tiffany's had increased the sale of, influenced the increase in popularity for Burberry trenches.
Yeah.
And also Todd shoes.
Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't mind betting those large sunglasses. I feel like they were Dior. I could be wrong. But those giant sunglasses have remained as steadfast in fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that that's sort of, what she paired it with. And pearls are timeless. And I wouldn't mind betting that her wearing pearls is part of that aesthetic. Because at one point, pearls were probably thought of as a bit fuddy-duddy.
And also pearls, I think, were... for the film title, the actual poster for Breakfast at Tiffany's, I think the illustration features a woman in a black dress with pearls. Could be wrong, but I think it's in that as well.
Yeah.
I know. She's an incredibly big character and figure in fashion for being non-sexual in her clothing choices. And I read something, going back to a point that you actually touched on, about her being the antithesis of Marilyn Monroe. And it's been touted that part of her appeal was that she appealed, whereas Marilyn Monroe appealed to more men because she was voluptuous and flirtatious and all of that, Audrey Hepburn appealed to more women, so they say.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if I can believe that, because a lot of the time during the 50s and the 60s, when advertising, like the birth of advertising as we know it, think of Mad Men, when you had these ad agencies that were, booming up everywhere. And they were really the tastemakers for women, kind of telling women what they should like at that time. You need to shave your legs. You need to wear this lipstick. You need to use oil of Ulay. And, all of these things, like women were still being quite led on what was ideal, what was sexy, what was smart, what was chic. And at the end of the day, Audrey Hepburn was a woman in an industry that was owned by men. And she probably loved and wore what she felt most comfortable in. But I think there's still this element of careful choice in what she wore and how she presented herself.
100%. I think that, and especially because of that consistency, I think it was a very considered choice. Especially at a time where it would have been very easy for her to try and compete in the sexy space. She was a very famous film star. I'm pretty sure that she kind of chose her lane, and also maybe to avoid her being pitted against Marilyn any more than she probably was at the time, was choosing her narrative and making very conscious choices, and everything sort of sitting with that. Because I think all women, everyone is sexy in their own way, or tries to be sexy, I guess, in their own way, and my level of sexy might feel different to yours. Some people it's to show off loads of skin, some people it's sort of leaving stuff to the imagination. But I just don't think there was anything that was like any sexiness was driving her decisions. I think she made a really conscious, I'm removing myself from that narrative in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Which is quite a big deal, considering that was such a big thing, and that was kind of how they were selling Marilyn.
Yeah, and not just Marilyn, like other actresses as well at the time.
What is it like in Notting Hill? There's like, they say that the word for actress is the same as prostitute. I think that in a language it's the same word.
Well, get your money how you can is what I say.
We don't judge you over here. The girl's gotta get a paycheck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So do you think, kind of one of my last questions to you, do you think there's anyone now besides Lily Collins who kind of parallels the Audrey aesthetic?
I think she's the kind of person that not many people try and touch it. I feel like at one point, do you know the model Erin O'Connor?
Yeah.
I feel like she sort of had a bit of a vibe of, she had the shorter, granted she was very tall, but she sort of would have that very off-duty look, and she had the shorter hair and maybe that, but no, not really. There's like no one in Hollywood I can think of that is trying to kind of be that demure. I think everyone is so experimental. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I couldn't think of an actress or a celebrity besides Lily Collins who has tried to play that lane. I do remember growing up that there were models that were, put in a position of, you're going to be the gamine one, you're going to be the boyish one, you're going to be the one with the pixie cut. And, like Chanel, if you have a pixie cut and you have a little face, Chanel's going to snap you up. You're going to be in their show because that is that's their muse in a sense. But outside of kind of particular fashion houses, I don't think it's an aesthetic that we gravitate towards anymore. We are
not full time.
Yeah, definitely not. I think now we are very much into the colors, the textures, the long nails, the gaudy jewelry, and it's not a slight on any of that because I like all of that. But yeah, we're just in we're very much more into a bit of a collection, a hodgepodge of things. And I think in a time that we live in, it's very much, we're getting it from all directions. Like, you need to buy new things, you need to buy into new trends, you need to buy different things. And there's only so many like black loafers a girl can buy at once. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's only so many Burberry trenches or black leggings that you need to buy into. So I think the culture of fashion and styling and clothing now is so fast paced and so ever changing because they want us to spend money. Whereas Audrey kind of embodies a certain period of time where, that old school sort of thinking, like, you buy this and you wear it forever, and that's your look.
It's your uniform.
That's your uniform. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Can you think of anyone who is as deemed as timeless as Audrey?
But now,
just generally. For me, I would say maybe it's men.
Oh, really? Like who?
I don't know. Probably men of a similar era, like the Cary Grant kind of.
Oh,
thing.
like a Sean Connery.
Yeah, I think that's what she reminds me of. Her style is very consistent, like a man. You have a nice suit. You have like, your thing is maybe double-breasted, maybe it's not, maybe it's the waistcoat. She just kind of had her uniform and stuck with it for just the duration of her fame. What were you gonna say for sort of classic or?
Oh, my brain's gone dead, but I think that Jackie Onassis is held up.
Oh, for sure.
She's up there. She's up there. Of course, Diana Spencer.
Yeah.
She is, and Diana's aesthetic has been big in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Bike shorts and chunky white trainers and a blazer, a university sports jumper or something. It's been really popular in recent years. Iconic status. Who else? I think those are the ones that pop up in my head. I was actually looking at an article online, and it was about like the most iconic dresses of the 20th century and 21st century, and they'd actually put Michelle Obama post presidency, and I thought very much in vein of like Jackie Onassis, where it's like you leave the White House and you can start dressing how you want. I think Michelle Obama, like when she came out in those like thigh high glitter boots, we thought, oh, this is a different woman. So I think I say all that to say that like time will tell. I think the people that we see in the spotlight now, we need to see them in 50 years time
and how it's aged.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I guess our poll with every fashion icon episode is, were they a style icon or did they have iconic fashion moments?
Yeah.
But also, dear listeners, let us know if you have other people you want us to be talking about for the style icon episodes.
Yeah.
Send in requests.
Men and women.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Style Over Substance, guys.
Don't forget to check out our Instagram or Spotify to respond to this week's poll.
Bye.
Bye.